All right, my friends, today we are going to take a deep dive into the Marantz AV20, AMP20. Everything you want to know about these products will be discussed in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasalo with Audioholics. We got Phil Jones back in the house. How you doing, Phil?
What's up, Gene? It's great talking to you again.
It's been too long since you've been on this channel.
Yes, I love the sparkly shirt.
Thank you. I'm supporting the stars.
Nice.
So Phil, we dropped the video the day you guys released the information on the AV20 and AMP20. Shane Lee helped me out, did a video for the channel, and we talked about all of its different features. We talked about its performance. Shane was very impressed with it. In fact, he's coming from a Trinov system, and he said this was the processor he'd buy if he didn't have a Trinov. That speaks volumes. I've got an AV10 and AMP10. I absolutely love those to death. I have those in my family room system. So today I want to talk to you about some of the performance differences between the two, some of the operational stuff. I want to dive deep into some features that people may not know about when they're buying an AV20 or an AMP20, and also how to properly configure your speaker situations. If you've got 13 channels of processing, the AMP20 doesn't support 13 channels of amplification. So we should cover all these topics, and then I'll put some time indexes after this live stream is over so people can skip around to their benefit.
Okay. Yeah. And we could talk about that, because if you look at the front of these two units, if you look at this pair, I'll just call them the 20 series because it's less of a word salad, AV20, yep. AMP20. If you look at the 20 series, they look very similar to the 10 series models that we did, the 10 series separates. And sound quality wise, they're very close as well. But there are some differences when it comes to things like construction and parts that the AV10 has a little bit more. But for many people, this is a great combination. I personally have a AV10 and an AMP10 in my home, but the fact is I don't need as many channels. I got it because I wanted the quality, the sound quality, but my system's only a 5.4.4. So having additional amplification and additional processing channels was overkill. So so that's where this model comes in.
Well, the nice thing too, Phil, is the fact that yes, you have a 9-channel system, but you could bridge those unused channels and get 3 dB of headroom for your speakers. That's what I did in my family room system.
And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to actually swap to the 20 series versions because that's enough power for me to bridge some of the channels, like my left and right mains, and still have enough power to drive everything else in the room. I may actually keep my AMP10 with my AV20 so I can BTL and bridge all 5 surround channels and still have power to run my heights. So it's more about, the first thing we want to get across is don't feel like you have to buy a 20 with a 20, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be a nice little combination of mix and match. Think about your application, how many channels you need, what is the power demand, and then pick the preamp that you need, and then pick the amp or amps that you need. Like in our big theater, we're running 2 AV AMP10s because we have 9 channels BTL at 400 watts per channel. And so guess what? There's lots and lots of different combinations there. So
and I want to mention one thing. So if you're buying an AMP10 or an AMP20, they have the identical amp modules in them, the identical power supply. I bench tested the AMP10 very thoroughly. Really was impressed with the performance of that amplifier. It's load invariant. It's a highly regulated supply. So you get 200 watts, whether 1 channel is driven, all the way up to 7 channels driven from my bench tests. And you get almost double the power at 4 ohms. And then when you bridge it, you get double the power there, 8 ohms. So you're buying pretty much identical performance between those 2 different amplifiers. It really just depends on the number of channels you need.
Exactly. So one is a 12 channel and the other is a 14. So let's talk 16, about that.
16.
The question that everybody asks, and I hear it all the time, is why is the channel count odd, like evens, when, most of the surround sound modes are, 5.1, 7.1, 9.1. And that is because this is the amplifier module, right? And we make one version of this module, and this version is utilized in both the amp 10 and the amp 20. This is a stereo module. So if I wanted to make a 13-channel amplifier, I would have to make a one-off mono amplifier module, which would increase the cost because it wouldn't be very efficient. The fact that manufacture these this way is more efficient and more cost effective than trying to make a one-off single mono piece. So yeah, so you're going to see most of the amps are going to be evens. So the odds we're going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And we looked at it and said many people are doing 7.1.4s. 11 is enough for most of them. So we'll make it a 12 channel. For those who really want to go crazy and go into maybe 7.1.6, then you would, or 9.1.6, then you would buy the big boy. Now you do it not, you go, well, now I got this leftover channel. What can I do with that channel? And there's ways you can actually use that channel for maybe another center channel if you wanted to have a center above your screen and below your screen if you wanted to do that.
Or like I said, in the case, if you're doing 13 channels of processing with the AV20 and you need 13 channels of amplification, get an amp 10 and bridge the LCRs.
Exactly.
You get 3 dB of headroom to those LCRs.
Exactly. So let's go in and look at some of the insides of some of these things. And I've always loved the quality. If you bring up the slide, I always love the quality of these units. So both pieces are 6,000 each. So 6,000 for the amp 20, 6,000 for the AV 20, right? Construction wise, really, really efficiently laid out in order to ensure excellent performance. So if you look here, you'll see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 2-channel boards, hence the 12 channel. So 6 amp modules, which you'll see in the amp. That's
the picture on the right.
On the right, and then on the left, you will see the preamp with the multiple HDAM boards that are utilized to for channels. So there's one per channel in the unit. So when it comes to cosmetics, they're all quite similar, right? You're going to have the copper screws, the chassis, the design, the fit and finish is quite similar if you just look at it from the front and from the side. But if you really take the time and stack them on top of each other, there are a few differences, right? If you look at the AV10, it's thicker. It's a thicker chassis. And I noticed that when I tried to put it into my rack, and I realized, wow, this thing is about 4 inches deeper than a normal AVR, and that was because of, if you look at the component placement, they wanted to move the components around, and they decided that that was the best placement of the components. So that is one of the reasons why the chassis is deeper. It's also a multi-layer chassis. The chassis has more layers, so it's more solid. So bigger chassis, higher end chassis, and a different orientation of where the components are, and more HDAM boards in the unit. Bring me back.
Real quick, I just wanted to answer this question. Someone said you could switch the HDAM filter. No, you can switch the DAC filter. There's filter 1 and filter 2, and that changes the roll off, and it changes the slope of the roll off. And that's all in my full review of the AV10 if you want to see the measurement results on that.
Exactly. Now, let's talk a little bit about HDAMs, because a lot of times people, actually, before we talk about HDAMs, let's get the video out of the way, right? So we offer some of the best video switching available on any AVR. So this is the board that would be in something like an AV10, a AV20, and a Cinema 30. If you look at it, it is massive, right? A lot of times people say, why does that preamp get so hot? A lot of it has to do with this video board, because of the amount of data that's going through it. So this is 7 inputs, 3 outputs, 40 gigabits per second. That is the maximum that's available currently on the market today, right? Now, if you look at the boards between the two models, they're quite similar. Bring up the slide, but there's a little bit of differences. the AV20 is a newer product. So when they selected the board to run in the AV20, they picked a newer version, right?
Right.
So the topography is the same, the capabilities are the same, but they utilize the newest version. The little pins on it are in a different location, so you can't just swap it into the AV10, but they knew this board was coming and they use it on the AV20. The main difference this thing gives you is the ability to utilize FreeSync. So if you're a gamer, right? So all HDMI 2.1 AVRs from Marantz and Denon support variable refresh rates. If you're a hardcore gamer, your game system will speed up and slow down its rendering of frames to ensure you don't have any tearing or any artifacts during your gameplay. And that is communicated between the display and the game system through the AVR. So we always have supported VRR, but think of VRR as generic, like if you're going to buy a soda and it's a generic can of soda that says cola, right? FreeSync is a branded version of VRR from AMD. So that would be like Pepsi. If you're not a gamer and you're just, or you're using a PlayStation or an Xbox, or you're just using this receiver for 8K movies, this is not much of a big deal to you. But if you got this thing plugged into a gaming PC and it's got one of these high-end AMD graphics cards, it's a benefit for those hardcore gamers. Yeah, Gene, you're live?
Did we drop audio?
No, I don't see you.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Here we go.
That's funny. So yeah, so those are kind of the video thing. The next thing we want to talk about is HDAMs, right? When you go from an AV20, the best way to think of an HDAM, and I have a couple of them here. HDAMs are utilized in a huge amount of components in Marantz AVR. So this HDAM is the HDAM for the volume control. This HDAM is an HDAM for the phono preamp. And then this HDAM is an HDAM for one of the pre-outs on the unit. So whenever we use these, whenever there is a need to boost a little signal into a big one, right? And there's different levels here, SA2 and SA3. A 2 is not better than a 3. It's just the application. So the units that I have here, those ones I showed you were all SA2s, right? This right here that's utilized in this guy, these are SA3s, right? So because this unit has so many channels of amplification or so many channels of processing, you need one of these to take that signal from that DSP processor and boost it in order to send it out as for your preamp circuit, right? Mm-hmm. So if you looked at these two boards on an AV10 and a AV20, they would look quite similar, except for maybe the AV20 would not have 4 of these. But if I pull these boards off, there's a little bit of a difference between the boards, right? So see if I can find that picture. So if you think of an HDAM as a recipe, a topography, a way that you wire things to build these little boards, and by changing the parts, they can tune the overall signature and how it sounds. But the goal is high slew, very, very dynamic, clean sound. Now, as you spend more money on an AV10, they can use higher grade parts because the unit costs more, right? So it's still a capacitor. It's just the grade of the capacitor is higher. It's still a resistor, but the grade of resistor is higher. So not only are the boards, if you look at them, where things are located are similar, but the components that they're using on each board is different. So there is a step up when it comes to the quality of the parts that are on the board. And the boards are on an AV10 are 4-layer, while the boards on the AV20 are dual layer. Now the question is, can you really hear the difference? And it's one of those, if I'm going to build the best piece, better safe than sorry.
Well,
right?
Anytime you have your own ground board just for that layer, that makes a difference, at least in measurements. You could drop the noise floor even lower. Yeah.
But if you measure both of these units, an AV10 and AV20, they both measure about the same. They both sound very, very similar, but an engineer just could use better components because he has a bigger there was a higher price target range that he could achieve. So he chose the best pieces humanly possible.
Right.
You know, but the sound quality on both of the units are very, very similar. And then the last but not least, the like as I mentioned, the chassis on an AV10 is bigger and multiple layers. So it's a 3-layer chassis instead of a 4-layer chassis. So those are like kind of the main things that that make a difference between an AV10 and an AV20.
Yep.
So actually, let's talk a little bit about some of the cool things that you can do with this unit. So say you do a system like mine, and you go, well, I have a 7.1.4, which means I have 11 channels, but this is a 12-channel amplifier. What should I do? What can I do with that other channel? Well, what you can do is if I go into the setup menu here, Awaken, hopefully, and I go down to, let's go into speakers. And you have your speaker configurations, right? Under your manual setup. Depending on the model you have, as you toggle through on this side, eventually you'll come across something that says custom, right? What custom says is, all right, you determine what you really want these channels to be. So what I can do is I can go down here to settings, and I can go, wow, looking at these settings right here, I have a front, I have a front, I have a front. I don't have these heights right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that one and I'm going to turn that one into
center.
A center. Actually, which one? Don't let me do it. Oh, let me do it. I know you could do it. I've done it multiple times. Yeah. So yeah, I'll pick that one instead. Right. So what you can do is now you could have a center above a big TV. Say you have a 100-inch TV, a center above that TV, a center below that TV. If you want to do 2 pairs of surrounds, you could do that as well.
Like side channels for multi-row.
Exactly. So you could so you can go in here and configure the system to fit the need that you're looking for using this custom mode. And the cool thing about it is, say you go in and you do a dual speaker preset, right? So you do one of them. Say you're doing, okay, I have 7 speakers around my room, and I want to use the 2 surrounds as playing the same signal on my 5.1. I could make a custom configuration and do that. And then I can have, when I go to Dolby Atmos, I can switch the other configuration where there's surround side, surround backs, whatever you want to do. So you can mix and match and make a lot of adjustments with this thing. So that functionality is available on the AV10, the AV20, the big A series Denon AVRs, and I believe the Cinema 30 and the 6800. So if you have more channels than what you're using, you can utilize those channels for not only second zone or third zone, but also to utilize it for a secondary center channel or something like that.
So it's important to note that when you do that, if you do two channels for each surround speaker or 2 center channels, it's going to have the same delay and level. Mm-hmm. You can't independently. Yeah, you can't. So it creates one large speaker, basically. Exactly,
because what it's going to do is they're both going to, when you run a test tone or you run Dirac or Odyssey, it's going to fire them both off at the same time, and it's going to look at its response at the seating position and adjust it as it's one speaker.
And it's also important to note the only other products where you can do multiple side channels, you're talking about a Trinov or a Storm Audio that are double, triple the price. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're able to even do this and have 2 side channels for multi-row seats, even though it's not perfect because you can't digitally delay compensate them independently, it's still better than having just one speaker there, because now you have much more broad coverage and you can hit better, all your seats with good sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of capabilities in this receiver. So that's one that I like. The other one that I like too, Gene, is the one that you came up with about a lot of times if you have a large set of speakers for a, let's keep it simple, 5.1, right? Mm-hmm. Normally your subwoofer will play the 0.1, the LFE, and then it will play the bass from your speakers that are designated as small, right? So the first request was, well, what if I want the subwoofer to play to help out my my mains as well. Close back. Why is this giving me a hard time? There we go. Let's start from scratch. There we go. Please assign your channels. It says
because you put it in custom.
Okay, I know. And it's probably like, I don't like what you just did. Now I can't get out. Okay, please assign your channels. Is there a button that I'm missing? Is there a button on the other side that I can't see? No.
You can tell that we're live, my friends.
Okay, there we go. Nope. What the heck? Pre-out. Let's put it back, front height, rear height, top, middle. Yeah, everything's good. You know what I'm wondering is where our icon is. Is there a button over there that I can't see? No. What the heck? Select, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. The wonders of world, Gene. I don't have time to sort it out.
Yeah, I get it. What you were trying to say, if I may interject, is you have two advanced bass management options that some products don't have. You can have LFE plus main, which will allow you to play your subwoofer and your large speakers in 2-channel. A lot of receivers, when you have full range towers, you can't activate the subwoofer. You'd have to put the speakers to small. You have that ability with Marantz. You could have the bass go into the subs and go into your main speakers, whether it's 2-channel or multi-channel. Then you have a more advanced setting, which I've been asking for years. If you want to run LFE to a really large tower, I'm talking about if you have towers that have bass capability similar to your subs, very few speakers on the market have that capability. So you got to be careful with this feature. You can now put LFE into your main speakers and the subwoofer simultaneously. There's no other products on the market other than the Trinovs and the Storms that allow you to do that. So that's a really excellent flexibility option. And that works whether you're using no EQ or using Odyssey, but it does not work for Dirac.
Exactly.
That's a Dirac limitation.
So I was going to try to show you that once I make it come back to life.
Your screen is frozen, by the way. So while you're fixing that, I'm going to answer this question here. Okay. It says, I seem to remember Gene's original AMP 10 review. The guidance from Marantz was to not use bridge tie load in a nominal 4-ohm speaker. Does it still apply? So legally, you have to say yes. You shouldn't do that because when you bridge tie load a speaker, it drops the impedance that the amplifier sees, driving double the current now. It really depends on the efficiency of the speaker and how low the impedance dips on the speaker. So in my case, I have Perlison S7Ts, and they're pretty sensitive speakers, or I think 91 dB sensitivity, and the impedance doesn't drop below 3.2 ohms because it's THX certified. I have no problems driving the S7Ts with LFE in them in bridge tied load at reference levels in my family room. So try it out.
I'm looking and I see that I'm frozen, but when I unplugged it, that's on a different camera. So I'm wondering, that's why you never, Murphy's Law. But you can hear me. I just look like I'm frozen, right?
Yeah, you are.
All right. Okay. Now, of course, we'll cut this out, right?
Yes.
So I wanted to show you where that was, right? So let's go down here to, I believe it is under, I think it's under, is it under speakers as well? I believe so. I was just going
the bass management stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Manual setup. And then you got to go to
advanced. And then there's your low frequency effects, your low pass filters. So this is, that's one of them, right? So that's, I want to send, and then we go back one more. Where is it? Yeah.
I think it's in a,
it's normally right in here.
No, this is
some of the stuff is grayed out because I probably haven't tuned the freaking thing yet. So
yeah.
Yeah. And it's a DPP, but you would go into low frequency effects here. And from that low frequency effects, you would go in and say, okay, I'm sure that my main speakers, and you can do your mains, your center, and your surrounds. And you could actually send LFE to all of those if you want to, but don't do that unless you're sure your speakers can handle it, because it's going to send an insane amount of bass. Then it will ask you, if you do pick your 2, do you want all of the LFE?
Yeah.
Or do you just want to send it like 6 to 12 dB below? So you can go, okay, just, play the LFE, but play at 6 dB lower than what my.
That's what I did for my Perlisons. I did it -6 dB for the LFE. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and then you get to take advantage of, we always say, if you have more speakers playing bass, you're more likely to have a smoothed out frequency response than if you don't. So that's That's what's really cool about that. All right. So we already talked a little bit about the amplifier. The main difference between the amps, like I said, is it's just how many more of these boards are we going to add into the amplifier stage, and they're pairs. So that's why it's even. We don't make a mono version of this. If we did, it would cost you more because it would be a completely different design and it'd be a one-off, and you would probably cost you more than if I added, if I just put the stereo board in, because I'm making hundreds and thousands of the stereo boards and then making, a few dozens monos doesn't make any sense.
So amp 20 has 12 channels, amp 10 has 16 channels.
Exactly. And if you look at the picture, the image I have here, the amp 20 is shallower, and then the amp 10. If you look at the amp 10 and the AV10, the chassis is thicker, right? Same thing. Move some stuff around, like the switching power supply and stuff like that. Realign some things, because that's the best way to do it. Multi-layer chassis, so you have more boards, but then just the way that those boards are physically laid out in the AVR is different.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to see the bench test results, I did exhaustive ones for the amp 10, and it applies to the amp 20, just less channels.
Exactly. Yeah, we're quite proud of these pieces. I mean, because if you look at it, the Cinema 30 is a great AVR. It's a great AVR, right? But there's some benefits to going to a pair of separates. It's just, I got a lot more room to fit the same stuff in, right? So I can make sure that the noisy bits are completely separated from the sensitive bits, right? The next thing is things like space for stuff. So if you look here, this is the HDAM board, the channel HDAM boards for Cinema 30. And if you look at each pair of 3 capacitors, or each set of 3 capacitors, that would be a channel. So if you count that, it's what, 13 channels right there? 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't count them. You count, Gene. But if you can look, that's all the channels that are there versus, multiple boards, which means far better channel separation, right? Larger quality components, which is going to give you better dynamic range. So while you can get a great AVR, there is some benefits to stepping up to the separates. And of course,
the reason why there's more capacitors is because you have the subwoofer channels. You have the subwoofer channels too.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are some benefits to stepping up to a bigger, to the separates. And once you buy this amplifier, or an amplifier normally stays forever. The part that ends up getting upgraded in the future is probably going to be the preamp.
Yeah.
When they start adding newer surround sound formats or 22K video or whatever, this piece may be the piece that gets updated, but good amplifier stage is good forever, right? So that's one of those things.
Did you want to talk about some of the some of the Dirac upgrades that are available now, or do you want to do a separate screen?
Okay. Yeah. So we announced that along with on the same date as the AV20 amp 20, that we are going to be supporting Dirac Active Room Treatment. We're going to be the first major AVR manufacturer to support that on both Denon and Marantz AVRs. It will be compatible on any modern Denon and Marantz AVR with 4 subwoofer outs, 3800 and above. I want to say Cinema 40 and above will have that capability. So if it's got 4 sub outs on your Denon and Marantz AVR, you can actually do that. If you can wait and buy the complete package with active room treatment, bass control, and Dirac Live as one thing, or say you already have active room Dirac Live and you have bass control, you could just pay for the upgrade to add active room treatment. The cool thing is it's the same file. So if you went through and did all of the tuning and you built your personal target curves and you love it, all you would do is go in when it becomes available, pay for the license, download the new software. It'll activate that functionality in the software. You open the file you already have, and then you apply active room treatment. So you don't have to go back in and rerun all your tests. So, and the same thing happens. You can start off with Dirac Live, do the whole test, set your target curves, and then you could add bass control. And then you can come back later and you could add active room treatment. You can't have active room treatment without bass control
Yeah.
And you can't have bass control without at least Dirac Live Limited.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what the advantage of active room treatment is over Dirac Live bass control? Because now you're using all the speakers in the room.
Exactly. So bass control is using the 4 subwoofers to help each other out to eliminate peaks and nulls, and also make sure that they're perfectly timed so they reach the listeners' ears at the same time. But we know that even if you have those four speakers, there's still going to be acoustics issues in the room. So
especially above 80 hertz.
Yeah, exactly. So active room treatment is designed to help improve the bass performance. By now, any speaker that can play fairly low is now used to assist those subwoofers to correct those peaks and nulls to make it sound more accurate. So it's a bass thing. It's not a high frequency thing. It's working on creating fixing bass issues. So it's not going to fix issues with first reflections in your room. If your room's echoey, it's not going to fix that. It's not a diffusion panel or an absorption panel on an acoustic thing. It's more like a digital bass trap is the best way I can kind of explain it to you. Would be the way.
The advantage too is when you do subwoofer control, like the Dirac Live bass control, that works at the subwoofer crossover point, which is, let's say, 80 hertz and below. Dirac ART could work up to a few hundred hertz. So now you can have seat to seat, better seat to seat consistency to 200 to 300 hertz that you couldn't do before.
Exactly. So the I think active room treatment, I heard it in Japan a year ago when they were testing it, and it makes a massive difference. The announced date or the actual, we wanted to tell people about it because people kept asking, when are you going to support? Are you going to support? Are you going to support it? So you want to let people know it's coming, right? The date is going to be later this year, and you will actually find out about that as well. And also another thing we did with Dirac is now if you have one of those our little Marantz M1 amplifiers and our Denon home amplifiers now also support Dirac Live. So you can actually, there's a two-channel Dirac Live functionality that can be used on those little hi-fi, little compact streaming hi-fi amplifiers. So those are the first little stereo pieces that we have that support Dirac. So
will ART come to the 20 before it comes to the 10, or will it be simultaneous?
It should be simultaneous.
Okay.
Once it's all because remember it should come simultaneously to all the models at the same time.
Okay.
Because once I get the programming I'm going to run that program on all, because the way it does is the receiver takes the measurements, and then they just have to make sure that when I feed that, when your computer feeds back what it wants the receiver to do, that it can understand it.
So a question we have, this came up a lot when we dropped our review of the AV20 and the AMP20. The price difference between those and the 10 series is not that much right now. But we know that the prices are going up. So if anyone's really into an AV10 or an AMP10, they should probably buy it.
Get it now.
Yeah, get it. And we have affiliate links below. So
exactly. If you want one,
the channel,
get it now. There's been when it comes to manufacturers that build like us, there's challenges right now when it comes to getting stuff in, this is challenges. So all of those challenges when it comes to pricing and international stuff has already been factored into the price of the AV20 and AMP20. But we have to go back and look at all of the other products in our lineup and determine, what's the best approach for that. We always try to minimize the impact to our people who buy our products, and the dealer will absorb some of it. The retailer will absorb some of it, but the dealer will absorb some of it. We will absorb some of it, but we can't absorb it all.
Yeah.
We just can't.
And it's important to note that both the 20 series and the 10 series are both built in the same factory in Japan, the Shirakawa factory,
yes.
right?
The in Shirakawa, both the separates are built there. The little Marantz M1 is built there. Cinema 30 is built there. Cinema 40 is built there. So it is a and what I always say when you look at products like this, our AVRs, if you factor in their capabilities and their price and their construction, how well they're built, they should cost more. But the difference is we are very vertically integrated. We make all of our boards we make these boards in house. Most places, maybe buy this board and then have that board and then maybe someone in the factory would plug this board into something. These things come in as tiny little parts, and our machines build these. So it's a lot easier to tune stuff, to make stuff that we want, and little parts come in and big boxes come out. And because we can do it all inside our factory, 90% of it inside of our factory, and we don't have to rely on other people building boards for us, it makes a big difference. So even if you look at I have a slide up, and if you look at it, the amp module that's built for these units are based on an ice power version, right?
Yeah,
it's a great amplifier.
Ice Edge, really good. Yeah. It's the best they've done yet.
Yes, but it wasn't good enough for us.
Right.
So to the left, you'll see the standard one, right? To the right, you'll see what we did to it. And there is a massive difference between those two boards, you know, the construction, the quality, the components that are utilized, and why? Because we wanted it to be better. And because we knew we were going to use it in multiple devices because it's modular. What do they call it? Economy of scale.
Yep.
You know, so I can not only use better parts because I'm building them in house. I'm just building them at such a volume that no one can match us with the same quality.
And the other cool thing is a lot of companies that utilize reference design class Ds, whether it's ICE, Hypex, Pascal, you name it, they tend to use the power supply that the manufacturer develops. You guys actually built the power supply for these amplifiers from the ground up by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's this guy, right? This is part of it right there.
1500 watt power supply. Yeah, it's SMPS. It's very tightly. It's very tightly regulated. Yeah. Very tightly regulated.
Yeah, and like I said, it's cool. I'm going to do a video with Nick showing them assemble these things. It's just amazing. I just like the fact that we just have the flexibility to build stuff in house, and the power, you've tested it, is exceptional. You know, 200 watts per channel in the 8 ohm, 400 watts per channel in the 4 ohm, and then you have your BTL, basically bridge tied load, and you just basically turn that from a single amplifier to a mono block, right? And then basically half of it does the top of the wave and half of it does the bottom of the wave, and you end up with way more power. So lots and lots of combinations. I will tell you that our theater, we used to have multiple amplifiers in it. Now we're down to like literally 2 amp 10s and an AV10, and it just destroys. And the amount of space instead of having a rack that's 7 foot tall, you know, it's like 12 rack spaces.
Yeah, no, it's great. And like I said, I've been using the amp 10 for probably, I don't know, when it came out, 1.5 years, 2 years ago. It's been a very stable platform. It's been able to handle, I did 5 channels, 5 speaker groups as bridge tied load. And then I did the Atmos channels as just regular. And this thing just doesn't run out of power. It just runs clean. It runs a little warm, so you got to give it some ventilation, even though it's class D. There's a lot going on in those amplifiers, so give it some ventilation. But it's been a very stable, very good sounding platform.
Yeah. So if you look at this, it's a slide here. So if you look at it, you know, it depends on, do you have a small set of speakers or a big set of speakers? Okay, you have big. Do you want to bi-amp them? You know, pull the pins out and run two sets of speaker wires, or do you want to just bridge tied load it and send one set of speaker wires out to it? You just have to make sure that you designate on the switches on the back which way you'd like to do it, and then the connections you utilize change based on that particular combination, right?
Yep.
And then there's just tons of combinations here. Like I was thinking about this. So here's an example: AV20, amp 20. Yes, you can do 7.1.4. If you wanted to, you could do a second center, right? Then you go to something like, maybe you want to do 5.1.4. I used to have a really demanding set of Wilson audio speakers and center channel where I could BTL the front 3, right? Then if I want to go further than that, say I go an AV20 with an amp 20, now I could BTL like 5 of my surrounds, you know, 5 of my 5 biggest speakers, and then use still have enough channels to drive everything else. In my house, that's like the case number D is what I'm going to do. You know, I could BTL everything all the way around my room, plus have power in my heights, plus to have power to drive my second zone at 200 watts per channel. So you don't feel like you have to buy a 20 with a 20 and a 10 with a 10. It's just what combinations do you want to go with? How many channels do you need?
Well, cool, Phil. Do you want to cover any other topics, features on the AV20, or is this pretty much wrap it up?
Those are the main ones. So I'm just looking at the chat here, see if there's anything interesting in the chat. Oh, the one thing that we never talk about, Jane, and we should do it at a different time, is the video processor in these receivers is insane. So it has the unit has a very, very robust web UI system. And part of that web UI system is an HDMI testing and EDIT management capabilities. So you could literally use any Denon and Marantz AVR to cable test. And normally a high-end 8K cable tester is $2,000, but it's built into pretty much all the Denon and Marantz AVRs.
Yeah, it's been for a couple of generations that you guys have offered that. It's awesome.
Yeah. And we made it a lot easier. Before it was like this crazy button push on the front and you could brick your AVR. Now it's just, you hold down you would basically, if it's on your network, you would hold down the button on the front that says status, and the IP address will appear on the front of the unit. And then you type that IP address into a browser, and then the web menu will come right up. And then you go in and make your adjustments. So I do all of my setup and stuff like that using Web UI. And because I have Oversee and Domotz, I can log in from anywhere in the world and fix something if I'm away from my family and my family's having problems with the AVR. So I think that's really, really cool.
Very cool. Well, Phil, I appreciate you dropping the knowledge here, and we should have you back and discuss some other stuff in the near future. I know you want to talk about HEOS, you want to talk about whatever new products that are coming out. So we should bring you back, give us some good topics, give us a preview. What do you want to talk about next?
Well, we should revisit as we get into active room treatment. We should definitely do it again, and maybe we'll do it live. Maybe we'll go down to the studio or go into the theater. And then we'll take the program that's in our theater, and then we'll show you how to upgrade. And then we'll mess with the target curves, and you guys and we'll just do it live, just like this with the on-screen menu, and we'll do it in the studio so I can walk you through and answer any questions you guys have.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
The other one that I would love to do is maybe we get asked a lot about setup tips. How do you subwoofer setup, speaker setup, acoustic treatments. That would be a fun one that we could tackle as well. And then lastly, there's some new HEOS stuff that we should come back and revisit. So there's going to be a lot more capabilities coming in HEOS in the upcoming months. So we should tackle that.
And I want to see the theater system at Massimo. I want to see, the reference room. So maybe we could do a video in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you like this video, please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Audioholics. We appreciate your support. And if you're going to buy a 20 series or 10 series, please use our affiliate links down below. We have our channel partner, Audio Advice. They are awesome. Great support for these products. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.